The basis of Tibetan Buddhist practice often rests with Refuge and Bodhichitta, these two fundamental topics. And we're very fortunate to have this online program, and this particular module looks at a fundamental prayer, the Refuge and Bodhichitta prayer, that is something we recite often at the beginning of teachings. So this prayer was composed by Lama Atisha in the early 11th century. Beautiful, beautiful prayer, extremely simple yet profound. And many people are familiar with it when they come to Tibetan Buddhism. It's one of the initial prayers that they hear. Prayer is often about our making a connection with a level of our highest wisdom, compassion, loving kindness. And in a sense, you don't have to be in a temple, don't have to be in a church to pray. It really is calling from the heart at that highest potential of yourself, often manifested externally, and in this particular tradition as an enlightened being, like the Buddha, which means Buddha, Sanskrit term, fully awakened being, fully awakened being. So this prayer, in English, I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By my collection of merits, of generosity and so forth, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all migrating beings. There are variations of the prayer based on different translations. We hear a version of this chanted at the beginning of teachings. And when we do it on our own, it sounds something like this. O Sangye Chodan Soki Chonam La Janchu Bardu Dagni Kyab Suchi Dagi Jin Sogi Peso Namgi Drola Pencher Sangye Druparjog. So what is the essence of this particular prayer? Why is it so important to be chanted, recited at the beginning of teachings? And what's amazing about this prayer is it contains the entire path to enlightenment. 4 simple lines. So for people who are busy, working full-time jobs, raising families, very busy with their lives and friends and things like that, this particular course is essential and is so accessible because through this 4-line prayer, you can take the essence of the entire path. And Rinpoche has put together explanations about each line with specific words highlighted. There are also meditations, so a mindfulness practice on some of the essence of what's being talked about in this prayer. If we look at, I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. These are the first 2 lines. I'm going to get enlightened, so I'm not there yet. I'm not there yet. The Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha are separate from me. Okay, but I'm seeking shelter or refuge in them. Why am I doing it? So the essence is, I suffer. I suffer tremendously. We all do. All living beings do. When a problem arises, what we tend to do is want to escape. So we run to friends and family for advice. We end up with physical recreation, listening to music, going to movies, reading novels, escaping through sports events, running to the refrigerator and eating, recreational drugs. So these are all the things we do when we're escaping, when there's a problem. These things tend to add some temporary relief to the problems and the trouble, but the problems are still there underneath. We run to friends and family. They give us advice. Is their advice limited or is it unlimited? Do they absolutely know what to tell you? So basically we look to what we call the triple gem, the 3 jewels of refuge, the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. So let's look at what are their qualities. What are their qualities? The Buddha jewel. There's a conventional level of the 3 jewels of refuge, and there's an ultimate level. Conventional level of the Buddha jewel is Shakyamuni Buddha, who lived about 2,600 years ago, was an Indian prince, found there was a level of suffering in his realm that he felt compelled to bring an end to. There must be an end to the suffering. And as a result, he goes out on an incredible journey to pacify his mind completely. And through that process becomes fully awakened or enlightened. In that process, becoming a Buddha, a fully awakened being, you are then free of all fears. Completely free of all fears. Imagine if you had no fears, okay? You're also fully empowered to benefit all living beings without any discrimination about them, okay? Helping beings, always benefiting beings, whether they harm you, whether they help you. That's the Buddha mind. That's what the Buddha does, okay? So that would be a conventional sense of the Buddha. On another level, you could say there's some forms the Buddha manifests. There is an emanation body, nirmana kaya in Sanskrit, emanation body. It's a body we see, for instance, as His Holiness the Dalai Lama, who manifests as a Tibetan monk. It's a manifestation we can connect with. There is an enjoyment body in Sanskrit, Sambhoga Kaya. And this is a body that we don't often see representing or manifesting as a deity. Okay, but this is on some level a conventional sense of the Buddha jewel. So the ultimate level of the Buddha jewel would be the omniscient mind, the all-knowing mind, all-knowing mind. The ultimate Buddha jewel as well, something considered Dharmakaya. Dharmakaya in Sanskrit, truth body of the Buddha. Truth body of the Buddha. What does that mean? In a sense, the wisdom that pervades everything. It is the wisdom manifesting, recognizing the emptiness of all phenomena, that non-duality that pervades everything. Some people refer to that as the absolute guru. Okay, so there's the Buddha jewel, conventional level, ultimate level. You would consider these qualities and reflect on this in this module. Is that an infallible source of protection for me from more suffering? Dharma jewel, the Dharma jewel. On one level, the teachings. You could look at the 3 baskets of teachings. The discourses the Buddha gave, the sutras, the Abhidharma, the abstracts on the philosophy, for instance, the Vinaya, the ethical code of conduct. Okay. On one level, essentially the teachings on emptiness. That would be an ultimate Dharma jewel, teachings on emptiness. And what we might say even more ultimately, true cessations, true paths, like that, which lead you to the truth. Then you come to the Sangha jewel. What is the Sangha jewel? Could be on one level, on a conventional level, a spiritual community. It could be fully ordained monks and nuns, or monks and nuns, so monastics like that. On an ultimate level, the Sangha jewel are Arya beings, those who have had a direct perception of emptiness, and in their mind stream have the true paths, the true cessations, like that. So the Buddha Dharma Sangha, the 3 jewels of refuge, is something you'd reflect on and understand the qualities. Is this something that will support me for more suffering? Normally, when we wake up in the morning, when we go through space, we have another 3 jewels that are operating. Do they serve us? So what most ordinary beings are dealing with is 3 jewels of me, myself, and I. Is it really beneficial? Does it help you? Does it lead you away from your problems and suffering on a long-term basis? Okay. So this module we'll look at those. Rinpoche rolls this out, and again, the first 2 lines, I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. So I'm a little bit looking at creating the cause for me to get to an enlightened state by seeking protection and refuge in the 3 jewels. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly by my collection of merits from generosity and so forth. And so this line, the 3rd line, is talking about the 6 perfections, fundamentally the practices that make you a bodhisattva, a Buddhist saint, so one who has synthesized the method aspect of the path, not separate from emptiness necessarily, but basically has the skillful means to get enlightened, and that involves bodhicitta, a Sanskrit term that means the enlightened mind. Bodhi is enlightenment. Chitta, mind. Bodhicitta, the mind of enlightenment, the essence is, I would like to become a Buddha. I would like to become fully enlightened, and the reason is then I am unlimited in helping all other beings. Bodhicitta. So the essence of this, ways it is practiced, and Rinpoche gives a specific mindfulness meditation on each of these perfections. For instance, generosity as the first, then ethical conduct, patience, enthusiastic perseverance, concentration, and wisdom. And so looking at these, you can work through your day with mindfulness practice on the cushion, off the cushion. What is it to make charity? What is it to have a generous heart and mind? How do you normally practice generosity? Do you give because you're interested in what you'll get back? Do you give so others will be impressed with you? That's not how bodhisattvas practice generosity. That's not the type of generosity that will get you to Buddhahood. So you start to work with and practice. So in a sense, we are rehearsing what is going to get us to this awakened state. And part of it is the essential practice of generosity and the other perfections. Okay? And then so by my collections of merits, of generosity and so forth, may I become a Buddha, may I then have the result of Buddhahood. Why? So I can benefit all migrating beings. So I can benefit all migrating beings. So there is an emphasis on all, for one. We tend to have some discrimination. We want to help the people we like. We don't want to help people we don't like. So the Bodhisattva path regards all living beings. There are no exceptions to that. If I'm on this path, I have signed up to take care of all living beings, to help them, all of them. And then migrating beings. What does migrating beings mean? People who are moving, beings who are moving. What are we moving through? Samsara. What does samsara mean? Sanskrit term to turn or to cycle. So we are cycling through samsaric, suffering existence, which encompasses things like birth, old age, sickness, and death. Birth, old age, sickness, and death, all of it has a suffering nature to it. That's what we're turning through, that's what we're migrating through. So for all these beings who have had countless lifetimes of suffering, we're signing up for them. I have to become a Buddha, and there's an urgency to it. There's an urgency that I've got to reach this state. I have to end up in this resultant Buddha state so that I can benefit all these living beings. So the entire path is there, from taking you through initially a fear that comes from realizing I'm in a suffering situation and it could be much worse after this life or when I die. So initially you start to generate a sense of fear that motivates you to practice, that motivates you to walk on this path. And so the fear is not a paralyzer. It basically starts to inspire you that I am afraid of the unknown. Most people are afraid of death, that ultimate transition. And so from that, realizing I don't have any control over that, I would like to start looking at something that's going to help me. What will help me? So then again, looking at reflecting on the qualities of the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, can I generate some faith? Can I begin to understand their qualities that starts to inspire some faith in me? And then coming into, when we look at the last two lines, is the reason I'm doing this, the whole point, is to become a fully enlightened being. And then I'm completely unlimited in benefiting all others. So the compassionate heart, Bodhichitta, is the whole premise of why we're doing this. So it involves all three of the motivations of the different scopes of the Lamrim, and the whole path is really contained in this very special, precious 4-line verse. So fantastic way is to look at this module and embark on this journey. And taking this simple prayer, you can make incredible strides in your spiritual endeavors. And may it be worthwhile for you. May it help all of us to progress along a path to full awakening so we can really be of the most benefit to all other beings.